Hi, friends. Today I'm going to address one of the most common questions that I get from people in my day-to-day life when the topic of my work comes up. That is, how I broke into freelancing. If you're trying to figure out how to get your first freelance gig, I want to let you in on a little secret. It might come from a place where you least expect and already have a connection with. Mine did, and it all started more than 20 years ago with nothing more than a conversation and a reputation. At the time, I was working as a full-time teacher leading math and technology classes in a high school. I had no formal freelance business, no website, no portfolio, just a strong passion for and understanding of how to use technology meaningfully in the classroom, and a growing passion for helping other educators do the same. Then one day, someone who knew my work and heard that I did some technology trainings for the teachers within the district where I was employed, contacted me. He was from a nearby school district and was looking for someone to teach after-school tech workshops for teachers and administrators in his district. He wanted to know if I was available and interested. I have to admit, I was genuinely surprised to receive the offer. Before I could even think about saying yes, I found myself wrestling with a heavy wave of imposter syndrome. At the time, I was still relatively new to teaching, only in my mid-20s, and I hadn't even yet earned my advanced degree. In the state where I taught, you had 7 years to complete your master's degree, and I hadn't been teaching that long, so I didn't yet have a graduate degree at the time. So I couldn't help but think, how am I supposed to walk into another school district and teach teachers who probably have far more experience than I do? But after some careful thought and self-reflection, I decided to say yes, despite my reservations about whether I would succeed. And despite the fact that I had never done freelance work before, deep down, I knew I wanted to be an expert in my field. And I could see that the additional income would also be a blessing in my life at the time. Now that I look back on this experience, now that I have more life experiences behind me, I realize that when the universe opens a door to a path you potentially want to follow, it's a good idea to walk through it unless you have a truly compelling reason not to. So I committed and I poured myself into preparing for these classes. I researched, I planned, and I organized my sessions as meticulously as I could. That preparation caused the results to meet and probably exceed my expectations. The participants did respond positively, and as a result, my confidence began to grow, and my professional reputation started to take shape. I really feel like in many ways, saying yes to that first opportunity set off a chain reaction of opportunities and events that have led me to be here on this YouTube channel right now. It allowed me to put my face in front of new audiences and gave me a valuable new experience that I could add to my resume. And while I was in the process of preparing for and teaching these sessions, I discovered an important truth. While credentials are valuable and worth pursuing, they're not the only measure of someone's ability to teach or bring value. A person with fewer credentials or less traditional experience can still have something meaningful to offer. And at that time, even though I didn't have years and years of classroom experience or that advanced degree yet, I was deeply passionate about integrating technology into the classroom. I saw the benefits, and at that time, I knew more about it than many others in the field. I had something of value to share. I also came to understand the power of thorough preparation in building both my success and confidence. For each session that I taught, I arrived with far more examples than I could possibly use in the time allotted. I even researched materials outside of the grade levels and subject areas that I personally taught because I wanted to have examples ready for other folks in the class. And of course, I didn't have examples for every possible subject or grade level, but I had enough strong, relevant material to establish my credibility and give the people in the class enough ideas for them to brainstorm how it could become relevant for them in their classroom. So that single class became my launching pad. One session turned into several, and as I continued teaching, word spread amongst folks and more training opportunities emerged naturally, mostly growing through casual conversations and word of mouth referrals. I didn't pitch my services or advertise. People simply started reaching out. In hindsight, this early experience did lay the groundwork for the career that I have today as a freelancer. Because remember, I didn't immediately leap into full-time freelancing. In fact, I spent the next 20 years in a full-time role, only freelancing on the side by teaching in various school districts and then eventually for businesses. But what most amazes me is that today, my work continues to grow in much the same way my freelance career began, through my relationships and delivering results. For example, one of my current ongoing freelance roles came about because I'd worked with someone on a learning project as a freelancer a few years ago, when I was still working full-time and freelancing on the side. Later on, the person that I worked with moved to another company, and she must have remembered the quality of my work because she reached out saying that she wanted to know if I'd be interested in a small, occasional freelance assignment, and that she'd already actually passed my name along to the person who was doing the hiring for that role. Of course, I graciously thanked her for thinking of me and spoke to the other person about the opportunity when they contacted me. I ended up accepting, and evidently I delivered what they needed because over time they began involving me more regularly, and now I am a long-term trusted external contributor despite never having been a direct employee. So what can you learn from this? If you're just starting out, your first freelance gig doesn't have to come from a job board or a cold email. Well, it can, It may not. It's more likely to come from your existing network, people who already know your strengths and trust you to do great work. Now, I want to give you a few steps that you can take to set yourself up for this kind of opportunity based on the experience that I've had over the years. The first one is let people know what you do. This does not have to be a hard pitch. Just talk about the type of work you're open to taking on, where your zone of genius and your expertise lies. And just let people know that you're skilled in that area. Second, and this goes back to when I said yes to the experience that I had, is if it's in your wheelhouse, say yes to the opportunity, even if it's small, unless there's a compelling reason not to. And being a little nervous about it, or it not being the ideal opportunity, is not a compelling reason. Remember that one class that I taught after school turned into years of additional work. You never know where something's going to lead. Next, deliver excellent work and focus on building relationships. There's that old saying that people remember how you made them feel. It's true. Be professional, be enthusiastic, be prepared, and be easy to work with. It goes a long way, and people remember that more than I think I've realized until I reflected on it. And last, don't be afraid to keep in touch with former colleagues and collaborators. You never know when there's going to be something that comes up that's in your wheelhouse, and they may need you and your expertise to help them. So keep those connections open. Related to all of this, I read a post fairly recently that said, if you simply invest time in doing not these specific 4 things above, but tips along the same lines, it's almost guaranteed that work will come your way. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. And honestly, that doesn't surprise me one bit. It works. It's not flashy. It's not overnight. It's a slow game. But if you're consistent and you build your reputation, you show up and you stay connected, your freelance career will grow. Often in ways that you couldn't predict. Also, although this is on existing connections, that doesn't mean that you should overlook freelance agencies as a way to get your foot in the door. They can be a great way to gain experience and connect with clients and get steady work without having to market yourself. I think that they are helpful when you're getting started and you don't have a huge amount of connections yet, and you want to build your confidence, your skills, and your portfolio. Eventually, I'll do a separate episode on how to find a freelance agencies and the pros and cons of working with one. So stay tuned if you want to explore that path. I myself have done quite a bit of work for freelance agencies, and I still do a lot of work with freelance agencies, which I'll explain why in an upcoming video, because I don't want to take up too much time here. So to wrap this all up, remember that in freelancing, your reputation is your primary resume, and word of mouth is more powerful than any ad campaigns. So don't stress out about landing your first freelance job the right way. Sometimes all it takes is being known for doing good work and saying yes when the right opportunity shows up. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you find these videos helpful, and I hope to see you on the next one. Take care.